When night falls, the darkness starts to speak. Between each breath and the silence, there are whispers no one was meant to hear. This is Night Whispers, where the dark has a story to tell. It started as an ordinary summer escape, sun, friends, and laughter by the Black Sea. Lars Mittank, a quiet 8-year-old German man, had come to Varna, Bulgaria for a carefree holiday. He wasn't the type to seek attention or conflict, but a single night out changed everything. A brief argument in a seaside bar, said to be over football, would soon spiral into one of Europe's most haunting disappearances. After the fight, Lars' plans took an unexpected turn. With his eardrum ruptured, flying was out of the question. His friends hesitated to leave, but Lars assured them he was fine, just a few quiet days to recover. He checked into a cheap hotel near the airport alone in a foreign city, but those days of rest would never come. Within hours, something began to change in him: fear, paranoia, and a growing sense that someone was watching. In the days that followed, Lars' behavior grew increasingly erratic. Hotel staff noticed him pacing the halls, peering through windows, and whispering about men outside. He called his mother again, his voice trembling, insisting that someone was after him. Each call sounded more desperate than the last. Something had clearly changed. The calm, easygoing man his friends knew was now terrified, convinced that unseen eyes were tracking his every move. By the morning of July 8th, Lars seemed restless but determined to finally go home. Surveillance later showed him walking calmly into Varna Airport, carrying his luggage like nothing was wrong. Yet beneath that calm exterior, panic simmered. Moments later, he appeared agitated, speaking to staff, then suddenly backing away in fear. Without warning, Lars bolted, sprinting through the terminal and out the doors, leaving everything behind as if running for his life. Outside, Lars ran barefoot across the parking lot and vanished into the trees beyond the airport fence. Witnesses watched in shock, unsure what had terrified him so badly. His passport, phone, and wallet lay untouched inside the terminal, everything he would need to survive. Search teams combed the area for days, but not a single trace of him was found. It was as if Lars had been swallowed by the earth itself. Over time, theories began to multiply. Some experts suggested Lars suffered a sudden psychotic episode, possibly linked to the antibiotic ciprofloxacin, known to cause rare neurological side effects. Others thought stress, isolation, and fear might have pushed him over the edge. Yet none of these explanations could answer the most haunting question: why did he run like that, as if fleeing something only he could see? Some believe Lars stumbled into something far darker, perhaps a crime, a secret, or people who didn't want to be found. The idea that he was running from real danger refuses to fade. Over the years, supposed sightings surfaced across Eastern Europe: train stations, hostels, quiet border towns. Each led nowhere. Every time hope flickered, it was quickly extinguished, leaving only questions and the chilling image of a man fleeing unseen pursuers. To this day, Lars Mittank's fate remains one of Europe's greatest modern mysteries. His mother still believes her son was running from something real, not madness, but danger. Every frame of that airport footage, every desperate glance over his shoulder, has been analyzed endlessly online, yet no clue ever surfaced. Somewhere between reason and fear, Lars vanished, leaving behind only a haunting question: what did he see that made him run? It was a warm summer afternoon in 1912 when the Dunbar family's peaceful fishing trip turned into a nightmare. 4-year-old Bobby Dunbar vanished near Sway Lake, Louisiana, without a sound, without a trace. One moment he was playing by the water, the next he was gone. The small town of Opelousas erupted in panic. Hundreds joined the desperate search, combing the woods and dragging the lake, but every effort ended the same way, with silence. For 8 long months, Opelousas lived in sorrow and speculation. Then a flicker of hope appeared. In early 1913, a boy who looked exactly like Bobby Dunbar was found in Mississippi, traveling with a handyman named William Walters. Walters insisted the child belonged to Julia Anderson, a woman who had left the boy in his care while she worked. But when the Dunbars saw him, they were certain this was their son. The quiet grief of a town instantly turned into public celebration. William Walters was quickly arrested, accused of kidnapping little Bobby. To confirm the truth, authorities arranged a reunion between the boy and Bobby's mother. The moment was tense. The child showed no sign of recognition, and the mother herself seemed uncertain. Witnesses recalled her hesitation, the silence stretching between them, but after several days together, something changed. She told the police and reporters with conviction that the boy was hers. The town rejoiced, believing the nightmare had finally ended. With headlines declaring Bobby Dunbar found the town celebrated a miracle, Walters was convicted and sent to prison while the boy was welcomed back into the Dunbar home as their lost child. But the joy didn't last. Julia Anderson arrived soon after, heartbroken and desperate, claiming the boy was her own son Bruce. She pleaded for them to see the truth that a terrible mistake had been made and her child had been taken from her. Julia Anderson's cries were drowned out by headlines that painted her as a liar. With no lawyer or money, she had no chance. The court sided with the Dunbars and she lost her son forever. She returned to Mississippi in silence, her heart shattered and her name disgraced. Decades later, the boy raised as Bobby Dunbar lived his life unaware of the truth until in the early 2000s his grandson began to question the family story. When the DNA results came back, they rewrote a century of history. The man the world knew as Bobby Dunbar wasn't a Dunbar at all. He was Bruce Anderson, Julia's lost son. The revelation stunned both families, turning a celebrated rescue into a heartbreaking mistake. Julia Anderson had spoken the truth all along, but no one had listened. And the real Bobby Dunbar, the boy who vanished by the lake in 1912, was never found. To this day, the mystery of Bobby Dunbar lingers like a shadow over Louisiana. No one knows if he drowned, was taken, or simply vanished into history. One man lost his freedom, one mother lost her child, and one family raised another's son, all because the world chose comfort over truth. Los Angeles 1928, a city of glamour and growing fear. 9-year-old Walter Collins left home with a few coins to see a movie and never returned. His mother Christine reported him missing, and the search that followed would soon grip the nation. At a time when child abductions were rising, the LAPD faced enormous pressure to deliver answers. But what began as a desperate search for a boy would soon expose something far darker. For 5 exhausting months, Christine refused to give up. She flooded Los Angeles with flyers, begged for leads, and pleaded on radio broadcasts. Then, a miracle, or so it seemed. In August, a boy in Illinois claimed to be Walter Collins. The LAPD, desperate for a victory, flew him to Los Angeles for a grand reunion staged before reporters. Cameras flashed, officers smiled, proudly certain they had solved the city's most haunting mystery. But Christine's reaction stunned everyone. The moment Christine saw the boy, her heart sank. "That's not my son," she whispered. But the police refused to listen. They assured her the trauma had changed his appearance, urging her to give it time. Under immense pressure and humiliation in front of reporters, Christine agreed to take the boy home. For 3 uneasy weeks, she tried to believe it. But every glance, every word confirmed her fear this child was a stranger. She returned to the LAPD and repeated firmly, "This is not my son." Instead of apologizing, the LAPD punished her. Christine was forcibly committed to a psychiatric hospital labeled delusional for refusing to accept the lie. While she sat behind locked doors, the truth emerged: the boy wasn't Walter at all. His real name was Arthur Hutchins, a runaway from Iowa who'd posed as Walter simply to get a free trip to California and meet his favorite actors. The police had humiliated a grieving mother, all to protect their image. Arthur's childish lie exposed a devastating truth. The police had paraded a grieving mother and a stranger before the world, then punished her for not pretending. It could have ended there, but fate had darker plans. Around that time, authorities arrested a man named Gordon Northcott, a Canadian farmer living in Wineville, California. His chicken farm hid a nightmare, the remains of young boys victims of a string of brutal murders that would forever stain Los Angeles history. The details that emerged were horrifying. Gordon Northcott had lured young boys to his remote chicken farm with promises of work, only to imprison, torture, and kill them. When police raided the property, they uncovered bones, clothing, and personal items belonging to several missing children. Among them, investigators believed was Walter Collins. Christine begged Northcott to tell her the truth, but he refused until the end. Convicted of multiple murders, he was executed, yet Walter's fate remained a chilling mystery. For the rest of her life, Christine Collins never stopped searching. She wrote letters, attended hearings, and pursued every rumor, hoping one might lead to her son. The city that had silenced her never offered an apology, never admitted its cruelty. Years later, her story inspired the film Changeling, but no movie could capture the true horror: a mother punished for love, a system that chose reputation over truth, and a boy who never came home. In the end, the tragedy of Walter Collins was more than a missing child, it was a failure of justice. A mother silenced a boy forgotten, in a city that valued headlines over humanity. Decades later, the story still echoes, reminding us how easily truth can be buried beneath pride and power. In the quiet summer of 2008, the small town of British Columbia was shaken by a mystery no one could explain. Kayla Reed, a 24-year-old woman rebuilding her life after a painful breakup, vanished without a trace. She had just moved back in with her parents, promising things would get better. Then one evening she walked out the door and into a silence that would haunt the town for years to come. That evening seemed ordinary. Kayla smiled, grabbed her phone, and told her mother she wouldn't be long. But when night fell and she hadn't returned, worry turned to panic. Her phone went silent before 8:30 p.m., cutting off all contact. Within hours, volunteers and police flooded the area, combing streets, forests, and fields. Posters with her face appeared overnight, and neighbors joined the search, yet no one had seen anything. It was as if Kayla had simply vanished into thin air. Days passed with no progress. Flyers fluttered on every lamppost, and the forest echoed with the voices of search teams calling her name. But there was nothing, no footprints, no torn fabric, no phone left behind. It was as if the earth itself had swallowed her. Police ruled out foul play, but her parents refused to believe she'd simply walked away. Kayla wasn't reckless or impulsive. She was thoughtful, dependable, the last person anyone expected to vanish without a word. Nearly a year after she vanished, the impossible happened. Kayla came back. On the morning of July 5th, 2009, hospital staff froze in disbelief as she walked through the doors barefoot and trembling. She was thin, sunburned, and wearing clothes several sizes too big. Her lips were dry, her eyes distant, as if she had wandered out of another world. Just 200 meters from where she disappeared, Kayla Reed had reappeared alive, but changed in a way no one could explain. When doctors tried to question her, Kayla said nothing. She only wrote her name shaky letters on a scrap of paper. Fingerprint tests confirmed the impossible. It was truly her. After 11 long months, the girl who vanished had returned. Her parents rushed in tears, streaming, but Kayla just stared distant and hollow. She smiled faintly as if recognizing them from a dream, yet offered no embrace. Whatever had happened to her, a part of Kayla seemed to still be lost. When her parents finally asked where she'd been, Kayla's answer chilled everyone. I was in the dark. I was safe, but it wasn't me. Police and doctors were stunned. There were no bruises, no fractures, no trace of drugs or restraints. Her body bore no marks of captivity, only exhaustion and emptiness. It was as if she'd vanished into a place that left no physical scars, only a silent void that had swallowed part of who she was. Kayla stayed in the hospital for a week under quiet psychiatric observation, but nothing more was learned. Then, just as suddenly as she had returned, she was released to her family, and the case went silent. No charges, no interviews, no answers. Within a year, Kayla vanished again, this time by choice. She deleted all her social media, moved to another town, and disappeared from public life. Whatever she had escaped from, it seemed she wanted it buried forever. With Kayla home and alive, the case was closed, at least on paper. But for those who met her, the questions only deepened. She wasn't wounded, yet something inside her had shifted as if she'd left part of herself behind. On her last night in the hospital, a nurse recalled a chilling moment. Kayla turned her eyes empty, yet intent, and whispered, "Don't go into the woods alone." The words echoed like a warning from somewhere no one should ever go. They find you there. Those haunting words became the final echo of Kayla Reed's story. No one ever discovered what she meant or where she had been, but her warning lingered like a shadow over the town. Whatever waited in those woods, it found her once, and perhaps it's still waiting. It was a calm autumn afternoon in Santa Rosa, California, October 2017, the kind of day when nothing bad should happen. 15-year-old Connor Hastings left school like he always did, walking the same quiet suburban route lined with trees and houses. But somewhere along that familiar path, he vanished. No witnesses, no sound, no struggle, just a boy who never made it home, leaving behind a mystery that would haunt the city for years. When Connor didn't come home that afternoon, worry turned to dread. His mother's calls went unanswered, and none of his friends had seen him since school ended. By nightfall, police and volunteers scoured every block of his route, flashlights cutting through the dark. The next morning, they found his backpack behind a dumpster, contents scattered as if dropped in panic. But his phone was missing, leaving no digital trail. It was the first chilling clue that something or someone had taken him. For weeks, Connor's disappearance consumed Santa Rosa. Search teams and police dogs followed his scent into a wooded path, only for it to stop abruptly as if he'd vanished mid-step. No footprints, no tire marks, no witnesses. Then rumors began swirling at school. Classmates whispered that Connor had been jumpy, looking over his shoulder, asking strange questions. Some said he kept talking about the man in the red jacket, someone only he seemed to see and who might have been watching him all along. Months passed with no progress until one March evening in 2018, everything changed. A 911 call came from an old payphone, a voice reporting a teenage boy sitting motionless on a bench outside a small-town library 60 miles from Santa Rosa. When officers arrived, they found Connor Hastings. He was alive but unresponsive, staring blankly into space as if lost between worlds. The boy who had vanished without a trace had finally been found, but something about him wasn't the same. When police approached, Connor didn't move. He just stared straight ahead, eyes unfocused, clutching a spiral notebook as if it were his lifeline. His hair hung long and unkempt, his clothes caked with dirt and wear. Not a word escaped his lips for over 24 hours. But when his parents arrived, the silence finally broke. Connor stood trembling, then threw his arms around his mother and wept uncontrollably, a reunion filled not with relief but with something deeper, pure, overwhelming fear. Even after reuniting with his family, Connor spoke only in fragments. Between long silences, he told investigators he'd been taken by a group, though he couldn't recall their faces, only the feeling of being watched. He said they kept him somewhere cold, a place without clocks or sunlight, where time seemed to disappear. When police asked how he got away, Connor's answer was as unsettling as his stare. They just let me go. I think. I passed their test. A month later, Connor spoke one last time before retreating from the public eye forever. His words were quiet but unforgettable. There were others. I heard them. I wasn't the only one, but I might be the only one they gave back. After that, he refused every interview. The notebook he'd clutched that night remained untouched, every page blank. No one could persuade him to write a single word, as if the silence itself was part of whatever test he'd survived. To this day, no one knows what happened to Connor Hastings during those missing months. The words "I was not alone" remain his only clue, a quiet warning written by a boy who came back changed. His return closed the case, but not the mystery. Some doors, it seems, never truly stay shut. It was a cold February night in 2004 when two one-year-old nursing student Mara Murray disappeared without a trace. After a small car crash on a quiet stretch of Route 112 inches, Haverhill, New Hampshire, she seemed to simply vanish into the dark. No screams, no footprints, no clues. Nearly 20 years later, her case remains one of America's most haunting mysteries, a young woman running from something, or perhaps running straight into it. That Monday morning, Maura's actions seemed deliberate, yet deeply strange. She emailed her professors, claiming a death in the family, a lie no one could explain. There'd been no tragedy, no reason to leave. Still, she packed clothes, toiletries, and textbooks, withdrew nearly all her savings, and stopped at the liquor store to buy wine and vodka. Security footage showed her calm, almost detached. Whatever she was planning, it wasn't a spontaneous escape, it was something she'd decided on quietly and alone. As daylight faded, Maura drove north toward the White Mountains, her car slicing through the falling snow. She told no one where she was going, and her phone remained eerily silent. Around 7:07 p.m., a resident called 911, a black Saturn, had skidded off a sharp bend and lodged into a snowbank. When police arrived 20 minutes later, the car was still running its lights on, but Maura was gone. No footprints in the snow, no struggle, just emptiness, as if she'd stepped off the edge of the world. When officers inspected the car, they found signs of a sudden crash, cracked windshield, deployed airbags, and wine splattered across the seats. Everything was there except Maura. A local bus driver, the last known person to see her, recalled stopping to check on the young woman. Through the window, she appeared pale, cold, and frightened, but insisted she was fine and refused help. Minutes later, when police arrived, she was gone as if the snow had swallowed her whole. The bus driver drove off to report the accident, but when police arrived minutes later, Maura was gone, not walked away, simply gone. Search dogs followed her scent up the icy road for nearly 100 yards before it ended suddenly, as if she'd been lifted out of the world. No footprints led into the woods, no dropped belongings, no clues. It was as though another vehicle had stopped just beyond sight, waiting for her or taking her into the dark. Investigators were left with more questions than answers. Maura's phone and credit cards were never used again, cutting off every digital trace. Some of the alcohol she'd bought was missing, hinting she might have stopped to drink or not. There was no sign of struggle, no motive for vanishing. She wasn't depressed, her family insisted, and she'd made plans for the week ahead, yet none of it mattered. One moment she existed, and the next she had simply ceased to. As years passed, Maura's disappearance evolved from tragedy into obsession. Online forums exploded with theories, podcasts dissected every frame of evidence, and amateur detectives debated endlessly. Some were convinced she had planned everything, a new life, a clean escape. Others believed a stranger had taken her, or worse, someone she trusted. But the internet's speculation only deepened the mystery, giving rise to darker theories, ones that suggested Maura never left those woods at all. To this day, no one knows what truly happened to Maura Murray. Every theory ends the same, with more questions than answers. The forest along Route 112 still keeps its silence, as if guarding her secret. Whether she ran, was taken, or simply vanished, one thing is certain: Maura never made it home. Far out in the frozen wilderness of Alaska lies the remote town of Nome, a place cut off from the world by endless tundra and reachable only by air. Life there is harsh, the winters unrelenting, and the nights seem to last forever. Strange things have always happened in Nome, but one mystery still haunts its people. The disappearance of Rick Hills in 2004 wasn't just another missing person, it was the beginning of something much darker. Rick Hills wasn't the first to vanish from Nome, but his case was different. A 7-year-old electrician, he was known as steady, quiet, and dependable, the kind of man who kept to himself, yet would always lend a hand. He lived alone in a small wooden cabin on the edge of the wilderness where the trees gave way to endless white. Life there was simple and solitary, but Rick liked it that way. Until one November morning when the silence around his cabin felt too complete. In Nome, isolation was a way of life. People valued their distance, their privacy, their quiet. But Rick's disappearance stirred something deeper, a realization that he wasn't the first. Over the past decade, more than 20 people had vanished from the same region, each case ending the same: no body, no evidence, no answers. Some blamed the blizzards, others alcohol, or the freezing tundra. But locals whispered another theory, that something out there was taking people and Rick had simply been next. When the disappearances piled up, the FBI eventually labeled it a pattern, but Rick's case stood apart, darker and more intimate. On the 13th of November 2004, he didn't show up for work. His boss tried calling again and again, but no answer came. That evening, a co-worker decided to check on him. Rick's truck sat parked outside, untouched, the cabin dark and still. A thin layer of snow covered the ground, yet as they approached the door, they noticed something that made their blood run cold: no footprints going in or out. It made no sense. The snow outside was untouched, not a single footprint leading to or from the cabin. The coworker knocked again and again, but silence answered. Circling the house, he found the back door slightly open, swaying in the wind. Inside, everything seemed frozen in time. The coffee pot was still full steam, long gone, and Rick's cell phone rested neatly on the table. No signs of struggle, no chaos, just an eerie stillness, as if Rick had simply stood up and vanished into thin air. What unsettled the coworker most wasn't the silence, it was the bed. It wasn't messy or half-used. It was perfectly made, the sheets tucked tight, as if no one had ever slept there. Every corner looked staged, untouched. Uneasy, he called the police. Soon officers arrived, combing through the cabin with flashlights, then spreading out into the snowy woods. They searched every inch of the property, calling Rick's name into the cold air, but the only thing that answered was the wind. The search grew massive. Dogs sniffed through the woods, drones scanned from above, and helicopters circled for hours. Yet there was nothing. Even with the fresh dusting of snow, no footprints, no blood, no trail. It was as if Rick had stepped outside and dissolved into the air. Investigators noted his coat, boots, and keys were all left behind. No signs of violence, no struggle, no forced entry. Officially, there was no foul play. Unofficially, no one could believe a man could vanish so cleanly. Rick's life left no clues, no enemies, no debts, no withdrawals from his bank account. His phone had gone silent the day before he vanished. For 2 days, Nome froze in uncertainty. Then, years later, a hidden detail from the case surfaced. A hiker 30 miles north of town stumbled upon something strange, a single man's sock half buried and frozen in the muddy trail. It was worn thin, stiff with ice, and nearby something else waited beneath the snow, quietly forgotten. Lying just a few feet from the sock, buried beneath a thin crust of snow, was an old Polaroid photo. Its edges were warped, the image smeared by moisture and cold, but one detail remained unmistakable. The picture showed Rick's cabin taken from deep within the woods, the view angled toward the living room window, and in the glass, faint but visible, was a reflection of a face. It wasn't Rick's. It was longer, distorted, its eyes too wide, as if whoever took the photo had been caught watching. The photograph was quietly handed over to police, who sealed it away and never showed it to the public. Years later, a retired officer who'd worked the case spoke anonymously to a local journalist. He called it the most disturbing image of his career. The face in the reflection, he said, wasn't fully human, pale, stretched the eyes unnaturally wide and the mouth half open, frozen mid-whisper. It looked like something caught in the act of watching and realizing too late that it had been seen. Police searched the woods again, scouring miles of frozen ground, but nothing turned up, no body, no tracks, no trace of Rick. After that, the stories began. Locals whispered about the watcher, something that moved through the trees unseen but always there. Old native legends spoke of the Dark Man, a being that lived between worlds, emerging at night to claim the lost. When the FBI stepped in, they dismissed it all as weather accidents and alcohol. But the people of Nome knew better. But Rick's case didn't fit the easy explanations. Those who knew him dismissed the idea of an accident. Rick had worked in the Alaskan wild for years. He knew the woods, the weather, and how to survive both. He would never have stepped outside barefoot, coatless, into sub-zero cold. He would never have left his door wide open. Whatever happened that night, it wasn't confusion or carelessness. It was something deliberate, something that came for him. To this day, Rick Hills has never been found. Some call it a tragic accident lost to the Alaskan cold. But others whisper that Rick saw something he was never meant to, something that had been watching from the woods, patient and silent, and once it noticed him, there was no escaping its gaze. Thank you for staying until the end. If the dark didn't scare you away, maybe you belong here. Subscribe to Night Whispers and let the darkness find you again next time.